great.
On average, they're fantastic. And this is what I have to go on average. I can't look at each individual test score and react how I would react to each test score because there aren't enough hours in the day. So what I do is I look at them as a whole. As a whole. So let me explain what we're looking at right now. Because this is stuff that I want to do by the end of this course. These kinds of measures and these kinds of images we'll be looking at by the end of the course. But right now, you might have never seen it before. Mu is a Greek letter for average. It's a Greek letter for average. So on average, you guys got a 39 out of 50, which might sound terrible, right? Think about that, 39 out of 50.
Yeah, but when you figure the low versus the high.
But look at this. The mode is the most frequently occurring data point, which was a 50. Now, how can the most frequently occurring data point be a 50, but the average be a 39?
Because the couple low scores pull it down.
Because of this graph. Now this graph, if you've never seen a histogram before, which some of you may have never seen, and that's okay, we're going to look at it by the end of this course quite a bit. What this is it's a numerical axis, which I got cut off unfortunately. This is 0, and this is 50. And the height of the bar represents how many tests were in that range. The reason the average is lower than the mode, and also the median, which we'll get back to in a second, the average, think of it like this. For an average, you have to think about where you would put your finger if you were to balance this. Imagine this was a tray with different height bottles on it, full of water. And you had to carry that as a waiter or waitress. Where would you put your hand to carry this tray so the tray wouldn't fall over? Would you put your hand here?
Yep.
Would you put I wouldn't.
Somewhere close.
Hell no, it's gonna go. Where do you have to move your hand? It's got to go a little bit over to here. Now somewhere close. I like what you're saying, guys. Somewhere close. Don't put it right there. It's going to get top heavy and fall over. You have to counterbalance that weight over there by sliding your hand over that way. That's why your average is a little bit lower than your mode. Yeah, there's a spike here, but the tail ends out there are going like that. Now some of those low scores are zeros by people I haven't heard from since day one. I have no idea where they are. I have no idea if they're coming back. But there's zeros in the grade book because I keep emailing progress reports letting them know, hey, I can't drop the course for you. If you don't want to, get the hell out. So that average reflects that. Does that make sense so far? Yeah. Does anybody know what a median is? It's a type of average. It's one that does, it's the middle. That's the one I actually call the middle. If I was to take all of your exams and put them in a line from least to greatest or greatest to least, I'd have like 30 altogether, about 30 of them, and put them side by side. You know, from the lowest, including the zeros. So put the exam down and the note he did, blank, blank, and then blah 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 up to all the 50s. In line, the median would be found by me starting at this end, at the first 0, and counting off 15 exams, right? Counting off 15 exams, and then straddling the 15th and 16th exam, and figuring out what number was between my feet. That's what the median is. Am I excited your median is 45?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah! Why am I excited? Because what is everybody over here?
Higher than
You're right, that or higher. Everybody on this side of me was at least a 45, and maybe even some people right here were at least a 45, real close to where I straddled. That is indicated up here. This is the median right here, friends. That line. This is called a box and whisker plot. I like putting it with the histogram because you get a real good idea of the spread of the data. The median is a 45. This guy right here, this hardly ever happens in this class. There should be another whisker sticking out the top. What a box and whisker plot does is, it does the same thing I just described, where it lines everything up, but then it splits it into 4 pieces instead of 2. So instead of just going to the 15th and 16th, I would also go to the 7th and 8th, and the 21st and 22nd. So I have 4 quarters of data. Does that make sense? And in the box and whisker plot shows you the 4 quarters. That means the lowest 25%, the worst performing 25%, got between a 0 and a 32. The next quarter of data got between a 32 and a 45. The next quarter of data actually is 2 quarters of data. There should be a quarter here and then a quarter with the whisker. But what this tells me is all of you got at least a 45, including the top quarter. So once again I say, 2 words, hell yeah. Once again, I have never had a box plot where the top whisker disappeared like that. So once again I say, hell yeah. or if me and Nick say it. So I'm excited. And why am I even more excited? What's going to happen to these numbers? They're going to keep going up. Oh, time out, real quick. A couple of the numbers. We're going to talk about all these numbers in this class. I'm thinking like the last 2 weeks of this class, we'll get into statistics and crunching this. The trimmed mean is something I check. What I do is I throw out the top few and bottom few values and re-average to see if it changes that much. So in other words, if I throw out the low outliers and throw out a few 50s and re-average, does anything happen? Nothing happened. It stayed exactly the same. So I said the outliers aren't pulling the average all that much. Sigma is an interesting number. It's one of the ones I want to spend a lot of time on in here with you guys. That's a measure of how spread out things are. When sigma is big, it means the data points are all spread out. When sigma is small, it means they're very close together. 14 is pretty normal for an exam. And you can see there's quite a bit of spread. I mean, well, hell, 0 to 50, that's pretty much the entire thing. You can't get much further than 0 to 50. So there's quite a bit of spread happening. And we'll talk more about sigma later on. Skew, we'll talk about that too later on. So ignore those guys for right now. But why am I even more hells yet excited? What are you going to do for Wednesday? What are you going to do for Wednesday with regards to this exam?
Take that data and put it in our stats.
Say that again.
Take that data and put it in our calculator.
Well, you can. I'm not going to make you do that, though. I'm not going to make you do this either. I mentioned this, right? Schedule page. Rainy day. Where's the rainy day? Rainy day, rainy day. I think
Oh
it's
yeah, the pie.
Do you remember? Hang on, let's find it. Do you remember?
Yeah.
There are 3 rainy day coupons. One is for projects, which most of you haven't used and most of you won't. But there's a rainy day coupon for each of the 2 exams, which allows you to correct up to 10% of what you just got back and resubmit it for full credit. So when they got a 45, you resubmit it and do it correctly, you got a 50. And when they got a 40,
There we go.
you submit it back, and you get a 45. You get 5 points back. Tap tops. Anybody got a 50? You can't do anything. Because you can't do anything wrong.
But can't you only use that? Is that for each? Oh, exam 1. I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. So one for each exam. So what you'll do is you're gonna have to read this. You gotta read this. Part of it is printed and attach it to the exam. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because that insults your intelligence, but I do want you to read it very carefully, especially the part that says, somewhere on here it says this, the corrections must be correct to be awarded points. I call that the lawyer phrase I had to add about 3 years ago. Somebody turned in a bunch of wrong answers and I wouldn't give them credit. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, well, you didn't do it right. They said it doesn't have to say it has to be right. I'm like, son of a... It doesn't. Nowhere in there did it say it has to be correct. It just said you had to resubmit it. So I gave them the points, changed the wording, and re-uploaded it. Freaking America. Freaking America and their coffee laps. 11.9 ounce, 12 ounce sodas. But read it carefully. Don't do the correct. If anybody's doing corrections right now, don't do it on the original. You have to do it on a separate piece of paper. There's a little bit of writing involved. So make sure you read this before you launch into to do the corrections, okay? Just so you know. That's why I'm excited, because when you guys do that, all of these numbers, that average is going to go up. So is the median. So is the mode. Well, the mode I probably won't go up actually, if I stay exactly the same at 50. But the median and the average are going to shift up slightly, because you're going to be getting more points. Does that make sense? In this way, I keep the assessment alive. I make you go back and look at it again. It's kind of like part of my evil master plan to make you think more and hopefully go back and revisit so that the stuff doesn't go out completely out the other, in one ear out the other. Cool?
How many points are all 3 of these going to be worth?
150 in class, 150 out of class.
I mean, the rainy day.
Oh, well, potentially. It depends on how many points you lose. So the coupon is worth 5 if you don't use it. But it's worth up to 20 if you do, or 25 if you do. It's a tricky question to answer, Nick. Because if you forget to do a project, it's worth 25 points to get the points back, but they're not extra credit points. If you don't forget a project, it's 5 extra credit points. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see.
The exam coupon is worth anywhere from 0 to 5 points, depending on how many you lost. And both of them are worth that, actually.
But that takes away the 5 points that you had already given us, right?
What does?
You said that you gave us an additional 5
That's
points.
the rainy day project. That's a completely independent thing. The exam coupons are use them or don't get the points. It has no effect on the 5 that you already have from the project. If you didn't use that project coupon, you still have those. If you did, then it goes away.
Okay.
Fair? It's a little bit convoluted, but it's in your favor, so it's a good thing. Yes? Sounds like whatever, dude.
Let's just move on.
8:35. Cool? Good. So what I'll do is, once I get these graded, I'm going to grade these over the next couple days. That's your out of class. We'll add that into that one, and you'll have an exam out of 100 points by your next progress report. Cool? Good? Yes. So there we go. How many of you were actually able to get into the shared spreadsheet and put your numbers in there? I saw about 10 when I last looked. That's most of you. Good. That makes me think that whatever's left is some kind of goofy tech thing that is just not have to live with. So I'll talk to the CIS guys again and see what they say. Cool. How was that? Thinker? Made you think? Good. That's why it's out of class. Imagine giving those in class. That'd be mutiny. I would expect knives and pencils stuck in my neck. Yeah, but they're thinkers. Given enough time, the point is to give you all the time to kind of let that wash over you. Okay, let me look at this freaking graph he just gave me, and let me figure out what he's talking about. All right? That's the point. Your life. In your life, you're going to encounter problems that you don't know how to solve. That's the whole point. I mean, anybody have kids? That's a daily occurrence. I gotta solve this problem. My kid just ate a cat turd. I mean, these are the kind of problems you have to solve. True story. Anyway, the point is that your life confronts you with all these things that you have to know how to solve. And you've got a tool set, but the tool might have to be used in a way you're not used to using it. On the in-class part, hopefully you didn't feel that way. Because on the in-class part, very straightforward, very straight ahead. Use the grade. Oh, by the way, here's the formula. Use the Pythagorean theorem. Oh, by the way, here's the formula. Right? That's the point of all of that. How many Star Wars cards would I have to buy? Ish.
I would say around 177.
177, that's what you were getting, Linda?
Well, I did different ones, but
Oh, good.
I would say the main, just 177.
Who else? I'm going to average them all for a Wednesday and come back together and show us our mass results.
My highest was 430, my lowest was like 120.
There we go.
The others were in the
That's interesting. So they can see the other 3 data points and see how they tie with Linda's.
Mine was 569 was my highest,
Oh,
but then
my.
my lowest.
560. It takes a while because you hit go. It's like go get a bite to eat and come back. I think someone will be running, right? Everybody kill their batteries doing it? That's possible. It's possible. So what do you guys say? We have a guess for a 177? 300? We got a guess for 300-ish? How many cards were there in the series?
66.
Anybody make any memories when you guys fired the webpage up to kind of look at how many cards? Yeah, it's great. Mark Hamill. They put his name, Mark Hamill, on the card, which I thought was great. What happened to that guy? Series Luke Skywalker? James on the bottom. Good. That says a lot. So, there you go. We'll actually have all the data on Wednesday. I'll collate it all into an Excel spreadsheet. We'll take our average. Hassani noticed something very, very cool. He sent me an email. He said, I got into the spreadsheet, and I'm updating my data, but the average doesn't seem to be changing. Awesome. Totally awesome. He was right. The average didn't seem to be changing, but it actually was. Can anybody think about why it didn't seem to be? I told you the answer, don't tell them. Why would the average, after a while, Hassani, you're like the 10th person in anything, something like that, right? Ish. Like he was like the 10th person, so there was already 50 data points in there. And he noticed when he put his data in, the average pretty much stayed exactly the same as it looked. Why? Why wouldn't it change? Andrew?
Once you get to the average, it doesn't really change it that much.
Assuming the first 45 data points were around what the average should have been, which they should be because the program I gave you was working properly, putting more data points in is only going to refine that down. But I think I had that thing rounded off to the nearest whole number, I think, in the spreadsheet. There weren't decimals. If I had stretched the decimals out to like 30 or 40 places, you'd see it changing. But it's going to change so far out in precision that you're not noticing it anymore. That makes sense? Good. And again, more of a discussion for later when we actually get into this stuff in the class, which I want to do. Yeah, Linda.
I do remember the problem is the Excel, why it shows an error. I don't know if I got the right answer or not, but
Oh, it
that's
shows
the,
an error. When you go all the way to one side?
why it doesn't show 100%. That's the one that I spent a lot of time on that I remembered you talking about it in class. I went back to the videos and I couldn't find it.
That's okay. That's all right. It's okay. I'm curious to see what you guys wrote. There's not one correct answer for that.
Okay.
I'm curious to see what you guys said. And again, that's why I like out of class too. It lets you guys kind of like, again, push your brains outside of their comfort zone. I did mention it in class. 100% grade is a 45-degree angle.
Right.
Perfectly. So if that thing didn't get to exactly 45 degrees, it won't get to exactly 100%. So that's one potential answer. I'm curious to see what you guys wrote. I'm curious. Cool. The thing that math classes do a crappy job of, I think, in my opinion, with you guys is it always seems there's one right answer to everything in math classes. That is not the way life works, right? How many of you have tried to move a couch up to a third floor for someone, right? How often do you have to try before you get that couch through the freaking hole, which is always 6 inches too narrow, right?
You gotta take the
And then you gotta take it back out when you move your friend back out. And chances are you forgot the way you did it the first time, but you get it out anyway because you do it a different way. It's problem solving. That's kind of what this class I'm forcing on you guys is this idea of problem solving. Yeah, there's some math involved, but it's way more about how can we think around corners? How can we, and I love the out of class stuff for just that reason. Yeah? All right, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. All right, let's pause this for a second. I'll get those.